Hi everybody, I'm Karen Sullivan. I'm with Sully's Upcycled, where I advocate for people to use pre-loved textiles in their sewing. Past patterns that I have made have been hoodie patterns that are upcycled hoodie patterns using pre-loved textiles, as well as mitten patterns. One that was specifically for upcycled wool sweaters and one that's for woven fabrics. There are many boxy top patterns out there, but I put this one together specifically for beginners and for using pre-loved textiles. For instance, the top I'm wearing, which is pieced together. I love using scraps and I love having frayed textiles and textiles that tell a story. There's a lot of holes in this one, different fabrics that I know what their history is, and I really enjoy that. This one is an upcycled tablecloth. Another one, which is one of my favorites, is using a summer weight quilt. So there's no batting in this, so it's nice and cool. I love using kantha quilts. And then finally one made out of bath towels, which I love. And of course there are different weights and there's different techniques that are used for each of those that we'll go over in the pattern. All right, so let's get started. So the files come in 3 different formats. One is the A4, which is a print at home and probably the one most of you will be using. The second is an A0, which is where you're going to be printing a large piece of paper, and you can get that done at office supplies or print shops that have large format printers. The third is a projector pattern, and I have some information on some resources in the pattern instructions to talk about projector patterns because they're very different from the others. Most of you will probably be using the A4 format. There are a couple extra steps. First things that you need to do is to set your printer at 100 or actual instead of fit to page. You're only going to print page 1. There are 12 pages, but first just print page 1 and then make sure that your test square on page 1 is actually 2 by 2 inches. If it is, carry on and let's go ahead and print out all 12 pages. If not, check your printer again. The actual instructions don't need to be printed. You can just view them from your device. Once you have your pattern printed, it's time to go ahead and cut the borders off. So you're going to cut the right side at the line. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and start assembling. So you will line up your pages, 1, 2, 3. There's numbers on each page. There's also a diagram on the instructions that will show you how it's going to look in the end. But you'll line up the hexagons, tape those together, and then you'll end up with one big pattern piece. The pattern comes in sizes from extra small to 5XL. There's a size guide that will show you how to cut your pattern, and the sizes will correlate to the different lines that are on the paper. Then it's time to cut out your pattern. It will end up looking like this and this. So you'll have only 2 pieces to this pattern. It will be the front and back, which is the same, and then only if you were going to use it and make that your choice for your neckline, a facing. So there's lots of joys and there's lots of challenges when you're using pre-loved textiles. A couple of the joys of using a pre-loved textile is that you've got often already finished edges, and I'm going to take advantage of that. My pattern piece is going to be laying on the fold, and I've got this folded in half. And I put it on the fold so that when I cut out, I'm gonna have one big piece. And I'm gonna need 2 of those, one for the front and one for the back. This textile was, I believe, either a curtain or a shower curtain because it has the grommets on it. Something I did find out too when I talk about challenges is the fact that there is a hole on the other side where I intend to cut out the second piece. So I will have to deal with that when I come to it, but that's the joy and the challenges of working with pre-loved textiles. Another challenge of pre-loved textiles is trying to figure out how much fabric that you have, or do you have enough fabric for the project that you're making? And that can be difficult. What I do recommend is just go ahead and cut out your pattern piece just like I did here. And that way you can gauge by using the pattern piece or knowing that about a 1.5 to 2 yards is what you're going to need for this pattern. Don't let that stop you though. This top here has 2 sides because I really wanted to use this embroidered tablecloth, but I didn't have enough for both sides. So I used a different tablecloth for the back side so that I had enough fabric. And it's 2 different looks, which is really fun. I can wear it one side one day, and then I can wear it the other side the next day. So I have 2 tops in one, which is really fun. So with this pattern piece on the fold, something to keep in mind too is that we've got a 1-inch hem allowance that's built into the pattern. There's also a 1/2-inch seam allowance built into the pattern. We'll talk more about that when we get to sewing. But I do want to take a look at the hem allowance right now. Again, the joys of having a pre-loved textile is the fact that we've got this finished edge here and we're going to take advantage of it. So I don't need my 1-inch hem allowance. I'm going to fold up 1 inch and bring it down to the actual hem because it's already built in. Unless, of course, I want it to be extra long. So I will lay down my pattern weights. I use just some upcycled pattern weights that I've made, but you can use some pins if you'd like. And then I'll start cutting out. All right, we're next going to talk about finishing your seam allowances. Your seam allowance is the edge between your seam where you've stitched and the raw edge. So you can finish your raw edges in a couple of different ways. One is with pinking shears, and that would have been happening when we were cutting out our fabric. We could have used pinking shears. Pinking shears are the zigzag blade, and they create a zigzag cut in our fabric, which helps reduce the fray. It kind of just softens the fray a little bit. There's also using a serger and using a zigzag on your sewing machine, and we're going to show those in a little bit. All right, so the second option for finishing your seams will be using a zigzag, and this machine has a zigzag on it, whereas my industrial sewing machine that I'm going to use in a minute does not have a zigzag. So the zigzag is just going to keep the fray from happening quite so fast. I will put an example fabric here because I'm going to use the serger for my actual project. I have my settings of the width of my stitch set at 3 and the length of my stitch set at 2. That works for me. You can decide what works for you. I'm going to get as close to the very edge of my fabric as I can. And I like to finish my edges before I sew them. Some people will sew and then come back and finish their seams or their seam allowances. No worries, you can do it either way. All right, so just getting as close as I can to the edge. You can see some fray happening already, and it will stop fraying as soon as it reaches the zigzag. So getting closer might be a better option for me. All right, there's my zigzag. A great way to finish your edges if you don't have a serger. So of the 4 finishing edges for the seam allowance, we've got leaving it alone, raw, we've got the pinking shears, we've got zigzag, and finally we have serger, which is probably how I'm going to finish it is how I will be finishing this project. So a serger is going to envelop the edge with stitches and it will not fray. It's not even going to slow it down, it will just keep it mostly 100% from fraying. This is what a serged edge will look like. Not everybody has a serger, so the second best would be using a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and serge all of my edges, and I'm going to do it before construction, before putting the pieces together. However, there are a lot of people who will sew first and then serge their edges after. There's no right or wrong way, whatever works better for you. There are also some people who use a serger to actually sew their pieces together, which that is another possibility. So one of the first steps in construction is doing a stay stitch around the neckline. A stay stitch is just a longer stitch that goes maybe a 1/4 inch from the neckline, and it's just there temporary, just to hold the fabric from stretching, because we don't want a overstretched neckline, especially when we're doing everything else. You can take it out after at any time, especially if you can see it after the construction. It'd be easy to take out because you use the long stitches, but hopefully it'll get hidden in the process that we use. And speaking of processes for neckline, there's 2 that I show at least in the instructions. There's several more that maybe I'll show later in another YouTube video, but we're gonna do either the facing, which is the other piece of pattern that I showed you, or we're going to do the easy method. And I think most of us like doing the easy method, so that's what we'll do next, is the easy method for the neckline. Before I do that though, I am going to go ahead and serge the neckline. So we didn't need this stay stitch for very long, but I'm glad that we did it, because I try to get everybody to do it prior to anything else, just to keep the neckline in shape. All right, next we've got our 2 pieces, and we're going to put them right sides together. Right sides together is a sewing term that you hear often, and it's I share a lot of the sewing terms that we use in this project at the back of the instructions, but basically right sides together just means the side that you're going to see on the outside is the right side, and it goes together with the other one, and that's what we're doing right now, so that our seams are on the inside and our good parts are on the will be showing. So I'm going to go ahead and pin or clip, and I'm going to use clips, I think, from the neckline out to the sleeve opening. All right, and while we're here, let's do our side seams too. And with the side seams, because I have a finished bottom edge, I need these to match up perfectly. Because if they're off even a little bit, it's going to show and not be very pretty. So I want to match those up first. So I'm going to match those up perfectly, clip them, and then work my way up. So I'm working my way up the side seam to the underarm. And if for some reason, and it shouldn't, but if for some reason something goes wrong at the edge of the sleeve, it's going to get hidden in the hem anyway. All right, then off to the sewing machine we go, and we're going to be stitching from the neckline out to the top of the sleeve opening, and then from the hem up to the edge of the sleeve opening at the bottom. All right, time to stitch some seams. We're going to start again from the neckline to the open sleeve. Again, a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and my needle plate has a mark so that I know exactly where to be. Hopefully you do too, but it should be a 1/2 inch seam allowance. My machine also has an automatic tack stitch. This is an industrial machine as opposed to the black one that I was using earlier. And I used that because it's got zigzag. This one does not, but I love this machine. So carry on. I'm going to go ahead and stitch 1/2 inch. Move clips and pins as you go. Slow and steady. Or fast. And perfect. And then that was the tack stitch again. All right, while I'm on this side, I'll go ahead and do the side seam. So I'm going to start from the bottom. Again, I want to match these perfectly because I don't want that bottom edge to be off a little bit. That would look just funky. So I'm going to match those perfectly. Put it under my needle plate. Put it on my needle plate. Make sure I get a 1/2 inch, get it perfectly lined up. And go. All right, one side done, go to the next. After sewing our seams, I want to clip a couple notches at the curves, which is mostly right here at the underarm. And that's just to relieve some tension in that area so that it lays flat when I iron it open and doesn't pucker. 2 or 3 is usually enough. I haven't found that I've needed to do that in the neckline, but that's an option as well because there is a curve there. And the method that we're using doesn't really need it. So you want to get pretty close to that stitch line, but you certainly don't want to cut the stitch line. So just a couple triangular notches. Yeah. All right. And now it's time to iron open the seams. Don't skip this step. Ironing is so important for a professionally finished look, or at least a clean finished look. There's not going to be much professional about the neckline that we're going to do today. In fact, some people might call it cheating, but it works for me and it works for most people. So we'll see if it works today. I hope so. All right, so our shoulder seams are ironed open. Go ahead and iron open the side seam, under the arm, especially where those notches were cut. One more, and then we're close. We'll do the neckline, and then we'll take a second just to try on the project thus far. And if we need to make any adjustments, especially to the length, we can do that if we want to make it a little bit shorter. Although we've already got our finished edges on this one, so hopefully that's not the case. But if we wanted to, we could always cut the bottom edge off and hem from there. All right, so neckline time. And remember, there's no front or back. But what I'm going to do, since we've already got the enclosed raw edge, I'm just going to iron down 1/2 inch all the way around and clip or pin. I think I'll use clips again. And again, about 1/2 inch, maybe somewhere between 1/4 and maybe 1/2 inch, depending on your fabric. And if you didn't use a serger on your edge for this method for the neckline, you at least have to have a zigzag neckline, or at the minimum pinking. And honestly, I would think zigzag or serger would be best for this method. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of iron and pin as I go. I'm going to go just about 1/2 inch, maybe just under. And you got to get a little fiddly here because you don't want any puckers or pleats, unwanted pleats. And this is where, if you didn't have this serged neckline, that the stay stitching came in handy to keep it from stretching as you did this ironing and pulling and folding. All right. This doesn't work for every neckline, but this one has just the right amount of curve to it. If it has too much curve to it, it doesn't work very well, because you'll find that the outside is bigger than the inside. But this is such a gentle curve, it doesn't make that much of a difference. When I get to the side seam or the shoulder seam, I want to make sure it's open as I fold it over, and I'll put a clip right there. Whoops! I'll put a clip right there. All right, again, making sure I don't have any puckers. And then all right, I think that's enough. So we'll take that now to the sewing machine, and I'm gonna do probably 5/8 of an inch seam over top of that to hold it down. So time to stitch down our neckline. It's going to be kind of a top stitch, so you'll see it. So I want to go to the side that I can see to make sure that everything's going well. I also like to start someplace inconspicuous. I'm starting at the very top of the shoulder seam, just so that things might get covered up if there's anything like the back stitch and all of that to see. I am going to stitch less than the 1/2 inch that I turned. So I turned a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to stitch 5/8, 3/8 of an inch from the edge. And what I kind of do is feel my way. I can kind of feel where the turned under edge is, and I go pretty slow. Again, I don't want puckers or pleats that are not wanted. And I continue to continuously turn my top with me so that I'm not pulling on anything. And since this is a multicolor textile or multicolor fabric, I'm just using my kind of off-white thread. If this was a red, I might do either a contrasting top stitch, or else I would try to match the fabric color with my thread color. All right, I'm halfway there. Keep going around. Sometimes I lift up the foot just so that I make sure that I'm not getting any puckers underneath it. And I'm looking for where I started so that I can finish right on top of it. And we're there. All right, neckline done. I just need to iron it and you can take a peek at it. Woohoo! All right, so that is our finished product of our neckline, the easy peasy method I call it, and that's the inside so that you can see the inner works, and I don't think that looks too bad at all. Just to show you, the other method is using the facing piece of the pattern is a facing. So that's what this is here, and it's showing the extra piece of fabric that has been sewn in, and it makes a really nice clean line. But honestly, I don't think it's very different than what we just did. So I think it depends on the fabric that you're using and your choice. It's your choice, however you'd like to do it. But those are the two methods that I show in the instructions. Our next step is to hem, and we're supposed to hem the bottom and the sleeves, but lucky us, our bottom is already hemmed because we used the finished edge of the curtain that this textile once was. So to do the hem, both on the sleeve opening and on the bottom of the bodice, you fold it in half once and then iron it, which is what I've done here. And then you fold it in half again, a 1/2 inch. So both times a 1/2 inch fold, and then another 1/2 inch fold. And I'm going to do that now. So everything is nice and sealed in. I'm going to clip it as I go. Now there is a caveat to that. I earlier showed the towel that I made, the top I made out of the towel. And if I folded that over a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch again, that would be very bulky. So instead, I just fold that over 1 inch. So if you're using a very bulky fabric, you might consider just folding over once, 1 inch. All right, almost done here. And yes, I'm eyeballing my 1/2 inch, and I think I'm usually pretty darn good just because I've been doing it for a while. You might have a ruler or a hemming ruler that would help you make sure that you're being even all the way around. But that's up to you. I also don't always use pins either, but that's just a preference and comfort and yeah, experience, I guess. So I'm just going to put a couple extra clips in here, although I think it's pretty ironed down, just to make sure. Yep. Second side again, I already did the ironing down once, the 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to flip it over and do the second 1/2 inch. And then I'll pretty much do the same thing I did with the neckline. Is you're going to see the top stitch when I stitch it, so I'm going to want to stitch it so that I can see what I'm doing and stitch it with the top of the top on the outside. I'm also making sure that my seams are open. So when I finished my seams, I went ahead and ironed them open, and I'm making sure they stay open when I stitch around because the hem is going to hold them open. And that's nice because it relieves some bulk. And ironing open seams, the reason we want to iron them is not only because it's just a nice finished look, but also because it does relieve some bulk. And in a second here, I'm going to show you the underarm where we did the notches and show how the notches relieved some of the tension of the curve. All right. By the way, my iron is a gravity-fed iron. It's very, very steamy, so not like most irons, but I love it. I bought it when I was working with a lot of wool, but it works well with all kinds of fabrics. I think that's pretty much good enough for that. All right, looking at the underarm. So typically you would see a whole lot of pulling right here if I hadn't done those relief notches, is what I want to call them. Is they give some relief. And I'll just iron that down. All right, one last time to the sewing machine to stitch down our sleeve edges, and then we'll try this guy on and we're done. All right, all we have left to do is to go ahead and hem around our sleeves, and since we folded twice at 1/2 inch, we're going to go 3/8 of an inch as our hem. And I'm going to start under the arm so you won't see anything there. And we'll try this baby on when we're done here. This typically takes me less than 2 hours from cutting it out to sewing it, and it's so fun to see all the different textiles that I can use. The one I'm wearing is made out of denim, and mostly denim, but also a lot of other scraps, and I'll show later. I will hope to have some YouTube video on how to piece together scraps like this. So that you can make, not just maybe make a hoodie this way, you could make a box top this way with the scraps. And that's what I'm all about, is I want to use all the scraps, not just the larger pieces of textiles, because I'm going to end up with some scraps from this. In fact, I think I could make another whole top out of this fabric. Going slow because I want to try to keep my seams even, but I'm almost done. And there we go. One down, one to go. Going back to the neckline, that's a choice that you're going to be making, is if you're going to use the easy peasy method or if you're going to do the facing method, but there's other methods. And again, I'm hoping that my YouTube channel, I will also show those. And that includes bias binding, using bias binding. It's not always my favorite. There's visible bias binding, and that is definitely not my personal favorite because it's just finicky for me. I just need to get better at it. That's all there is to it. But there's also a hidden bias binding, and I do like that. It's similar to doing the facing. But I will share that hopefully on YouTube. So make sure that you follow me on YouTube, not just on Etsy and Instagram, because I'm hoping to add more videos. And if you haven't yet looked at my hoodie video, even if you don't have the hoodie pattern, you can view the hoodie video. And same with this, even if you don't have the box top pattern, you can always view the video. Almost there. All right, looks like I'm about to get a little pucker. I am going to push that out, and no puckers allowed. All right, so I just got to iron those, and then I'll try it on. Can't wait. hope you enjoyed making your box top with me today. You can find the box top pattern and all of my patterns on Etsy at Sully's Upcycled. You can also share what you've made today or any other time on Instagram. I would love for you to tag me, again, Sully's Upcycled. Specifically, this pattern, the box top pattern, half of the proceeds of the sales on Etsy are going to go to creative reuse centers to help support them. Thanks for joining me making your Sully's Upcycled box top. I hope you had fun.